So I had this little sawed-off shotgun, and I was told to go get this guy because he owes money and bring him back to him. So I duct taped, allegedly, his head to the front of the barrel, and I duct taped my hand to the trigger and the pistol grip.
Brian, what's
Yes,
going
sir.
on?
Brian, also known as Doc
Also
Twisted.
known as Doc Twisted. Man, that was a great ride yesterday. Had a good time.
I did too. It was good getting to know you. Just hearing your heart and hearing the character and integrity you have.
Oh, don't ruin my
kind of
reputation
people.
here.
Oh, we're rolling. I really did enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a good time. We didn't. We went on a poker run, but ended up not being a poker run. We ran around.
Two of the stops were canceled, and we didn't know.
Yeah,
We didn't get the
yeah.
memo. So,
So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
well,
Kind of give your.
I was born a small white child, but I'm chocolate on the inside. No, I'm just kidding. Let me. I don't know how far back to go, but I just I wanna explain a little bit about my background so that you'll understand my intensity. And because I am a goofy,
You didn't turn off
sorry
your
folks,
ringer.
I'm a goofy, funny, fun person, but I do that as a coping mechanism mostly because of all the stuff that we've been through and trauma, PTSD, and things like that I deal with and fight as a daily battle, just from life. I'm dealing with unraveling soldiers that come home. I have a CISM, Critical Incident Stress Management license, and worked for police departments on and off for 15 years, dealing with the murder scenes, suicides, homicides, different scenes, and unraveling the human side of the experience, people that saw what happened and trying to unwind them and send them home safely to their families, or unwinding an officer that had to unholster his weapon in the line of duty and then going,
That's a polite way to say it.
he's okay to go home to his family and not beat the wife,
Yeah.
So my dad was a whistleblower, and I was a young kid. We had a ranch in New York, a cattle ranch. Believe it or not, there's cattle ranches in upstate New York. But he was a whistleblower for Housing and Urban Development Agency, HUD. And he had a GS-14 rating, which is basically clearance. He's got, anyways, he ended up blowing the whistle, and I'm going to drop some names here on a guy named Frank Sarabone, who's dead now, and I can mention his name. He was a mob boss in New York, and he blew the whistle on his boss, which was Frank Sarabone, for skimming money off the pots of the community garden program that my dad wrote for HUD in 1968, which they're still working on that model today, that community garden package my dad wrote. And when he did that, he blew the whistle. He was fired for wrongdoing, of course, fall guy, whistleblower. There was no protections for whistleblowers, and there really isn't now. I mean, they say there is, but there's not. But without going too much into it, he was fired and blacklisted. My dad had a real extensive background. He went through World War II. He's a war hero. He's in 11 battle campaigns, Macon Raid, Aleutian Islands, all over the South Pacific as a Navy guy, and a medic on the USS Nashville. And so he came home from World War II going, we won the war. I'm a patriot. Let's build our country, like all those men did back then. And he got a job for the government, and then he saw the corruption. And at that point, it just kind of let the wind out of his sail, because he wanted to be righteous and a patriot and put the corruption on the table and deal with it. And he got a job as a whistleblower, internal affairs, And
So he was internal affairs.
Internal affairs for HUD.
And then, so what did he?
How did
that work out?
He blew the whistle on this guy, filed a report on Frank Sarabone, who was skimming basically out of the budget of the community garden program that he wrote. And he caught him in it, and he's lining the pockets of all the mob guys in New York with that money, our tax dollars at work. And when he did that, they blacklisted him, fired him for wrong. They fired him And then I'm trying to recall some of this. I was probably about 7 or 8 years old at this time. But 15 years of my life, my dad fought it without a lawyer all the way through the court system to the United States Supreme Court. It's a documented case you can look up. It's V.L. Shaw versus the people of the United States. So that's the case. And on the third appeal, he lost. And it took him almost 15 years. And I ran the farm, growing up running the farm, while my dad fought the government all of my life.
Holy cow.
And he fought it. People magazine stated one time that my dad was one of the top 10 legal conceptual minds of our time. Oprah Winfrey did an interview with my dad over the whole mad cow disease and stuff like that. And
oh, wow.
when that whole thing came out.
Yeah.
So my dad, because he was blacklisted and couldn't get a job anywhere else doing property management, et cetera, he was the vice president for the Bank of America over the whole California state branch when they had vice presidents and presidents over the states. And so he had a good background when he went to HUD. And he blew the whistle, and that let the wind out of his patriotic sail, so to speak.
I can see how that would happen.
And they ended up shooting over 300 head of cattle in our yard as a kid, in our fields.
Why did they
burning our house down?
Who did that?
Either the mafia or the government.
So they just came in.
The jury's out on that one.
Were you home?
We were on a camping trip, and we came home to a house burnt down and dead cattle in the field. It was very traumatic as a kid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and us as kids, it was just my sister and I at that point. The other two weren't born yet. But it was, it was very surreal. It still is, because of the
Did your
childhood.
dad have an idea, or like, was he leaning one way or the other on who it was?
That never came out in the court cases or documents. And I think it was just kind of swept under the carpet. And it probably was the mafia. It might have been the government. I mean, they act the same way. So
fair enough. Seems tomato.
Yeah. Why did Snowden go to Russia?
Yeah, fair enough.
Go ahead.
No, so then you, coming from the background that you did, then you started getting into a line of work that is amazing, and I kind of want you to elaborate on it.
Well, growing up on a farm, I had to really run the farm. I'm going to go back to that for a minute, and then I'll kind of go back into why I did what we've done and what we're doing now. But growing up on a farm, you learn all kinds of things. You learn how to be a plumber and an electrician, a carpenter, building barns or whatever. You learn all that stuff, and a mechanic. I'm 11 years old. I split my first tractor.
Wow.
A Massey Ferguson split. You got to split them to get to the clutch. So you learn a lot that way. Make a lot of mistakes too, but you learn a lot. I had to run the ranch, and it was a lot of pressure on me. We raised over 2,800 head of cattle growing up, not at a time, about 300 in a segment. And we took Holstein animals and raised them from drop calves to 1,000 pounds in 1 year, which is historically has never been done.
How did you guys do that? Did you do grain?
I'm going right now. The beef farmers today, they buy pretty much the bull calves from the dairies, and they fatten them up. They graze them for a while on a ranch land or leased property, and then they fatten them up, put them in the feedlots, and then dump them for beef cattle at harvest weight of about 1,000 pounds to 1,300 pounds, and it takes them 18 months to do it. And the farmers always have had no control over what they can sell them for. They take them to market, and whatever the market's doing, that establishes what they get for them. So they really have a tough time budgeting and getting a return on their. Well, my dad came up with a plan feeding them on corn, whole corn, which provides a roughage, but they also passed 30% of it, and we ran pigs behind it and chickens behind that and people behind it all. So we had our little ecosystem. We had wasp nests that controlled flies and bats that controlled insects. Then we put all in these little 1 acre parcel that did 48 head on 1 acre square.
Oh, wow.
And there were little ecosystems. And then we licensed it for other farms, and they profited $78,000 on 1 acre a year for that little turnkey operation. And so it was genius, but we were using a Holstein calves, and the reason...
What's a Holstein calf?
It's a black and white, mostly known as a dairy calf or dairy cattle, because they grow too much bone their first year, and because they're a big framed animal, they're developed that way, or their genetics are that way to grow bone their first year, so it'll support their weight that comes on them the next year or two. Well, the beef industry hasn't typically used that animal for beef because it's got too much bone weight and it doesn't return enough meat weight for harvest.
Okay.
So there's a mercy killing law of 1996 that's a federal law that allows the farmer to kill a financially burdensome animal in the event of it not producing a profit. So in Washington, California, and Oregon, just in those 3 states, not counting any of the other states, which are big dairy states, Washington, California, and Oregon alone, they're killing 12.8 million head a year.
Do they get to count those as losses on their taxes?
Yeah, but my problem is the wasted food.
Yeah,
Here
100%.
we are crying out, everybody's hungry, and we're
Right.
killing 12 million head in these 3 states. So my dad took that particular breed, and he fed them heavy in their first year, where they don't have the, or heavy in their first year where they could grow the meat weight first before their bone really filled into the second and third year, and became a wasted animal. And he sold them as yearlings, which produced a tender corn-fed beef. And as a science, we got 385 pounds of cut and wrap beef on the table that we could count on budgeting to our end user. Now, if he took it to auction, whatever the auction's paying off, that's what he had to suffer with. But he sold it directly to the public on a direct marketing plan. And it was innovative because there really wasn't those kind of things back then. It was in late 70s, early 80s. And it was so much down, so much a month. And you got an animal at the end of the year, and you just become a repeat customer. As a family of 4, you come and pick out your animal, sit at a picnic table, have a picnic, and go, number 47 is ours.
So
so what we do, let me finish. We would escrow that money like a real estate deal.
Okay.
And then we would borrow against the escrow account to feed the animals. So it was genius.
Oh, that's
for
smart.
cash flow.
So when your dad became a whistleblower, did you guys have to sell the house? Or no, obviously it burnt down.
That house burnt. We came out to California and started raising beef.
So you did the same
We had beef
thing.
out there as a hobby farm, but we came out here and did a production farm in Vacaville, California.
And that was all the same way? You raised the same cows with the same corn and everything?
And what started that was his uncle George. Before World War II, my dad, his dad was an alcoholic, and my dad left home at 14 years old, went to live with his uncle George and worked on the farm and just got kind of an education there, It reminds me of a joke real quick I'm going to tell. Is city folk comes out to pick a cow from my dad, or a steer, and he says, "You farmers sure know a lot about a lot of stuff." He was talking about tractors and carpentry and fencing and this. He says, "How'd you get so smart?" He said, Dad looks down. He says, "You see that little pill on the ground right there? Pop one of those in your mouth." Guy reaches down. He pops this little black pill in his mouth. And he says, "That tastes like shit." He said, "See, you're getting smarter already."
That's good. That's good.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
No, you're good. Yeah, no, we're good. So
go ahead.
no, let's fast forward a little bit because I want to get into the.
So what I did is my mom and dad went through a divorce when I was 15. It was really hard on me. So we ended up losing the farm. And Mom went to school, and she became a psych tech and worked for Agnew State Hospital when all the state hospitals were still going. And she worked in mental health for 20 years after that, helping disabled adults navigate through an independent living program. And that comes into play later is why I created an independent.
Is that mic in your way?
No, not at all. Why I created an independent living program for basically troubled teens age 13 to 21 is because they don't teach you how to balance a checkbook in school and how to, they don't have home ec classes anymore and all those things that, just regular skills to survive. So we developed a program for that because of my mom was like that. She kind of poured that stuff into me.
So you developed that.
Yeah, later on. But anyways, back to 15, I left. You know, when we lost the farm, it was really traumatic for me because here I am, a country boy that can step off the porch and take a piss or shoot your gun, and now I'm in the city. So I went nuts, and I hooked up with these guys who were riding motorcycles, and I have ridden motorcycles all my life on the farm, dirt bikes and stuff. You know, I'm gonna hang out with these guys. They ride motorcycles, you know, and they ended up having a chop shop. I'm not going to mention who it was or any names or anything like that, but I ended up getting right getting out of high school, I ended up getting a tow truck job for them, and I had allegedly, in this movie once, sold over $2 million in cars with that tow truck. And so my other buddy drove for a highway patrol and did those contracts. And so he says, hey, I heard the buzz. They're going to be raiding your shop over there, your yard, your tow yard. And I go, oh, man, I bought a one-way ticket to Hawaii, and I left, man.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And so I end up in Hawaii, and I see this guy dragging across, and I'm like, what's this guy's deal, man? What does he think he is, some kind of fat Jesus over here dragging this cross down the Waikiki right in the main drag there?
A guy's walking down the
big
street.
Guy, big 400-pound guy carrying a cross down the street. And I'm going, what is this guy's ordeal? So I walked up to him, I go, what's your deal, man? And I tried to push his buttons, get in his craw, and tried to piss him off, tried to, pick a fight with him. Everything I tried to throw at that guy.
Why?
He just, I don't know. I just had a bone to pick, as a rough kid and hanging out with these
How old were
biker
you?
guys. I was at 19,
Okay.
yeah. And so I just kind of tried to pick at him, and he just threw love back at me. And so I sat there and watched him interact with other people as they're spitting on him, cussing at him, calling him names. I'm like, all the guy's doing is dragging across. Why are you guys treating him like this? And I got convicted because I was like, I was doing the same thing. And the guy was just loving everybody, and everybody's picking on him for no reason.
So you went from yelling or screaming at this guy or whatever you were doing
to backing him up, going, leave him alone, man.
in the course of how long?
5-6 hours. I sat there and watched this guy.
You sat there and watched him for 5-6 hours.
I sat there and watched him for 2 days after this.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the first.
And he's just walking down the street every day with the same cross?
He's standing there and preaching the gospel and passing out tracts and walking up and down the street with a cross, and kind of like a street preacher thing.
Okay.
And so I'd never seen anything like that. I'm from the country, man. Like I said, we pee off the porch and shoot off the back porch,
Fair enough.
And so anyways, it broke my heart watching how people treated him after I treated him that way, and that's what kind of got in me a little bit. So he invited me to go hear his testimony, hear his story at a church. And I said, I don't want to go to a church, man. I'm not going to no church. And he goes, come on, man. I'm just going to share my story of how I met the Lord. And I go, well, I'm just not into it. You can tell me right here. You go, come on, man. I go, okay, I'll go. And as I'm walking away, I'm kicking myself going, man, a man's only as good as his word. Why did I tell him I would go? Why did I tell him I'd go? So I'm in this little one-bedroom, or actually a studio apartment in Waikiki, and it was time to go, and he sent somebody to pick me up. His name was Brother Ben, and I didn't even know his name. He called, and he goes, hey, this is Brother Brian there. I go, this is Brother Brian. I'm thinking, what are we, Amish now? Brother this and brother that. He goes, I'm on my way to pick you up, about 20 minutes. I'm looking at the clock. I go to that door handle and I grab it 3, 4, 5 times. And I finally decided I'm out of here before he gets here. I grab the handle, I run down the hall, I push the elevator. Come on. It didn't open. I run down the end of the hall to the window, open the window. I'm climbing down the fire escape of this building, a metal fire escape. The bottom ladder's not even there. I got to jump the last story. I'm climbing down the ladder. Here comes this little Chinese guy around the side of the building by the fire escape and goes, hey, are you Brother Brian? I'm going, oh, shit. Are you Brother Ben? He goes, yeah, something's wrong with your elevator. And here I am on the fire escape, trying to escape, going to church. So I went that night and heard his story, and I'm going, man, this guy's giving my story. Just like we were talking about the other day. He's telling my story. I said, dude, if there is a God like this and he'll forgive that guy, then I want him to forgive me too, because I collected dope money. I stole $2 million, allegedly stole over $2 million in cars. I had a guy allegedly in chapter 4 of my book, had a guy strapped to a shotgun with duct tape one time, turned him into the man, collected dope money.
Well, hold on a second. Let's not gloss
I'll get into
over
that later.
Okay.
Okay, you can ask questions if you want.
Yeah, I want to know about that.
Yeah. So I was up in Seattle. This is another segment of my life before I went to Hawaii. It's all during the breakdown of my mom and dad. So I'm all over the place. I went here, I went up to my brothers in Seattle, went back. So I went up to my brothers in Seattle, and in the tow truck yard, I had gotten addicted to meth at that point. And my clean date, by the way, is April 26, 1989.
Hey, there you go.
1989, bro.
Couple of days.
Pride myself in that, man. And I was telling somebody that the other day. I go, it's 1989. I said, all right, when were you born? I said, you look pretty good for your age, but who tells babies that, you know?
Yeah, fair enough.
So I go up to Seattle, and I met these guys. They were meth and coke dealers, also bikers. And I'm not trying to stigmatize the biker industry. We're a couple of good bikers in here, but and I ended up, because of my addiction, I ended up doing work for them, collecting dope money. So I had this little sawed-off shotgun, and I was told to go get this guy because he owes money and bring him back to him. So I duct taped, allegedly, his head to the front of the barrel, and I duct taped my hand to the trigger in the pistol grip.
Oh, shit.
And I drove him there.
How did you find this guy?
You just go looking for him. They're all in there.
So you just went and found this guy.
Found him.
You beat him up, rough him up a little bit?
Point a gun at him. You don't have to do that.
And then you just, hey, wait there. Let me grab my duct tape.
No. You hold the gun on him. I didn't put him. At that point, I had him sitting on a tarp, on a chair with a tarp there, and he's shitting purple Twinkies. I got his legs duct taped to the bottom of the chair.
How did you get him on a tarp?
With the gun.
I mean, allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly, that's how you do it in the movies.
Yeah. So then you just duct tape his head to
Sit
the
down.
freaking thing.
Sit down. Shut the F up.
Okay.
One of those deals.
Yeah. And then you duct tape him, and then you
Duct tape his
you're
feet.
driving, or is he driving?
No, I drove, but I've duct taped his feet to the bottom of the chair, duct tape his arms to the chair. Then I got his head, duct taped it. Then I cut his feet out. Then I stood him up, cut his arms out. I stood him up, tied his arms, took him out to the truck. I climbed in the passenger side, duct taped to the shotgun, into the driver's seat while I got him in the passenger seat, and I'm driving to the man's house. Duct taped with a shotgun with him. What the fuck? Yeah. So I felt pretty bad about that.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Anyways, so I got a little history in there. I was a soft kid at first, a ranch kid. Then I got roughed up and hardened by the city life, and I just had to fit in somewhere and survive too. And there's a lot of collection of stories and issues like that. That's where I learned to kick doors,
Right. And
anyways, long story short, because this is 10 podcasts. If you
yeah,
want
But
I ended up giving my life to the Lord after hearing that guy give his testimony and thinking about all the crap and chaos that I had caused through my mom and dad's divorce and the rocky times of coming out of a stable family relationship where we all ate dinner at the table, and we had a farm and we had garden and we had good upbringing, coming out of that into this chaotic inner city life of, if I don't stand up and be somebody, I'm not going to make it here. So that's kind of what motivated me to just be ornery in my addiction. So anyways, then I ended up working for a tow company, which was affiliated with a motorcycle club, and did work for them, and allegedly, hooked up a bunch of cars and turned them into them because they had a chop shop going. And then I heard the heat was coming down. I went to Hawaii, and that's how I gave my life to the Lord. And went to Teen Challenge, got cleaned up. Then I started speaking for Teen Challenge for a couple of years.
What is Teen Challenge?
Teen Challenge is it
team or teen?
Teen. It's a residential treatment facility for kids with life controlling problems or kids that are addicted or, you know, addiction. They don't deal with just addiction. They deal with a lot of stuff. So, but I went through that program. A guy named David Wilkerson started it years ago. If you ever read The Cross and the Switchblade, great story, great book. He was working with a guy named Nicky Cruz, which was the lead gang member in New York for the Mau Maus. And Nicky Cruz was a hardened killer, man, and he was trying to lead him to the Lord. His whole focus was, if I can just lead him to the Lord, his whole gang will come to the Lord, you know. And so that was kind of the presence of that book, or preference of that book. Anyways, I ended up traveling with them and speaking with them for a couple of years and doing radio shows and different stuff for Teen Challenge. And I was the only one that ever got kicked out of Teen Challenge that ended up speaking for them. I got kicked out for fighting. And they let me back in, and then I got kicked out again. And then they said, well, maybe you can make it on your own, but we want you to just work with us. So I worked with them a little bit. Then I left Teen Challenge, went to Bible school. I went to Georgia to work with the guy's ministry that was carrying the cross. Had a ministry called Christ in Action Ministries, which he now does disaster relief, which I've done with him too, all over the country. Hurricane Katrina, he goes there and helps clean up houses and get people back on their feet. But he kind of took me under his wing. And at my 20-year reunion of when I asked God to save me, that April 26, 1989 was the date. But at my 20-year reunion, he flew out here to California, and we rode a couple motorcycles to the top of Mount Shasta. And he looks at me and he goes, it was worth it. And I said, what was worth it? He said, all the shit you put me through. He said, I've been doing this for 40 years, and you're the hardest rodeo pony God ever had me ride.
Oh, that's hilarious.
He said, but it was worth it. And he started tearing up, and I was like, man, I'm so sorry. I remember one time having a foam cord around his neck and kneeing him in the balls and putting him against the wall, going, get out of my business, out of my business.
Really?
Oh, man, we had some times. But he just loved me, still loved me through it.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a man.
Yeah, right. So at my 20-year reunion, he came out, was that 2009, I guess? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, I had switched my addiction from, you know, whatever I could do. You know, I would do everything. But April 26, 1989 is when I drew the line and said, okay, I'm done with everything. And I switched my addiction to food. And I gained over the next 10 years. I was always a big kid, about 220 pounds, solid ranch kid, bucking hay, you know, dealing with cattle and working on tractors and all that kind of stuff. But I had gained a massive amount of weight up into my highest point in 2008. I was 570 pounds. And I go to the doctor. I'm in congestive heart failure. I have kids of my own now. My wife and I are going. I'm having trouble breathing. And we go to the doctor, and he says, I give you 6 months. I said, 6 months for what? He says, to live. And I went, whoa, wait a minute, man. I don't see a toe tag or an expiration date like I was telling you. And he goes, Mr. Shaw, this is no laughing matter. I look over at my wife, and I go, man, she's crying. Instantly, it became my guilt. I did this to me. I had to wake up to myself and go, nobody made the sandwich that made me fat. Nobody cooked that way to make me fat. Nobody held a knife or a gun to my throat and made me eat the spaghetti. I had to look in the mirror and go, what am I going to do? I'm leaving my kids like this.
How long were you at that weight?
I was over 400 pounds for about 15 years.
Oh, wow.
So I blew up, and then just, you know, but the last 2 years were the hardest because I gained up to 570. It was my heaviest. I had a 78-inch waist. I wouldn't even be able to sit in this chair. I was telling my girlfriend the other day, I said, listen, I remember sitting in a church chairs, those little metal folding chairs, and put one on each cheek and still bending them like pretzels.
Oh, wow.
570 pounds. A couch like that, I broke probably 7 of those couches. sit on the couch, you get up. He's got this 2x4, and you push to get up. Boom, the 2x4 snaps.
Holy cow!
About 7 of those.
So you're in the doctor's office. You're looking at your wife crying.
I tell you what,
coming to this realization.
That's when it really shook me up, and the mirror moment where I went home after that. I'm looking in the mirror. You know, first of all we prayed and said, God, I need your help. The story was, I asked the doctor, I said, well, what can I do? And he said, what have you done? I said, I've tried Jimmy Crack Corn, every late night pill across the TV. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on every little fad diet, starting at Fin all the way up. And he says, well, go home and prepare to die. And he walked out of the office.
Oh,
that's when I looked over at my wife, and I go, she's crying. That's when it all dawned on me and came on to me like, oh my God, I did this to myself.
He just walked right out of the room.
He said, go home and prepare to die, and walked out of the little doctor, cubicle.
You think he did that for like a shock value?
I'll tell you what, a lot of people that I've told this story to have said, shame on him. I'm thankful that he did that because I needed that hard slap in the face.
Yeah.
I really did. It was like a mule kicking me into motivation. And I said, I got to do something, man. So we cry out to God together, my wife and I at the time. And I'm running a little plumbing company out of my house, sitting in a wheelchair, rolling back and forth to the file cabinet, the desk, the phones, doing phone curls, doing $1 million a year at a little plumbing company off the phone. And this guy pulls up in front, because I had a little plumbing sign in front of my house, and knocks on my door. He says, hey, I want to buy your scrap copper. I said, I don't sell it. We use it for our, barbecue once a year for all the employees and stuff, and we just keep it for that. Money in the bank. He said, I'll give you top price. Whatever they give you, I'll pay you, and you don't even have to load it, sort it. I'll take it all. I said, I told you we don't sell it, man. I told you what we use it for. Well, all right. Can I share something with you without embarrassing you? He said to me. I said, oh, here we go. I knew he was going to approach my weight issue or something, I just felt it. And I'm like, let me get rid of this guy. Okay, go ahead. And he goes, I just want to share how I lost 100 pounds. I said, dude, save it. I said, I could lose 100 pounds if I push hard enough in the bathroom this morning. I have to lose 350 pounds. It wasn't a reality to me at that point to look at the monster and say, how am I going to get to my goal from here? It's like, how do you eat an elephant?
One leg at a time.
One bite at a time,
yep.
Man. You got one chew at a time. I tell addicts when they're dealing with addiction, I said, you guys, you try to take it one day at a time. I said, there's too many minutes in the day. There's 24 hours in a day, 60 minutes in an hour. I said, you take it one thought at a time, because that's where you make the decision to blow it. Not at 3:00 tomorrow afternoon.
Right.
Right now, when you're saying, no, I'm not. I'm at that wrestling match, that one thought, that's when you got to take it. So I had to approach my weight the same way.
So you're talking to this guy.
I talked to this guy, and I hear him out. I'm going, okay, 9 days ago, I prayed that God would help me. Here's this guy knocking on my door to buy my scrap copper, and I'm sending him away, and he wants to tell me how he lost 100 pounds. So I go, okay, let's hear it. So he breaks it down to me. I went on this much protein and this much, and under this much sugar and under this much carbs. And I'm thinking in my head, okay, this is the Atkins diet, because I went on that too. And I lost 60 pounds and gained 80. And you go on these fad diets and you go up and down and yo-yo. They're not lifestyle maintainable programs that you can, exist on for the rest of your life. This is how I'm going to live my life on this Atkins diet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The carnivore diet's a little better because you can do other things, and but I was, so I went through all those fads and phases of diets, and gone up and down, and every time I ended up heavier than when I started. So I'd pretty much given up, and it was obvious I was 570 pounds. So the guy breaks it all down to me. He says, and call this doctor. He's my nutritionalist. He'll get you on a program where they monitor you. And once you start losing weight real fast, they want to make sure you're not losing your building blocks. They want to make sure you're mineralizing, taking vitamins. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm never going to make this. So he left. I go, thanks, appreciate it. Have a good day. And he left. I never saw him before, and I never saw him again. But I did call him, and I had his number later down the road. So I call his doctor, and the receptionist gets all my information and says, hey, would you like to come in and be on our program? I said, yeah, well, that's why I'm calling you guys. And she said, well, I'll put you on the waiting list. I said, the waiting list? How long's the waiting list? She said, it's about a year.
Oh, geez.
I said, ma'am, this other doctor told me I got 6 months. I said, what am I going to do, man? I said, this is like calling suicide prevention and being put on hold. That's 6 months. My family's looking at me going, Dad, what are you going to do? Honey, what are you going to do? What are we going to do? Do you want to go on the waiting list or not, sir?
Oh, damn.
Yeah. Like, I got another call coming kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
I go, yeah, just put me on there. Thanks. Click. Hang up the phone. I look over at my wife. We both start crying again. I'm going, God, I don't know what to do. You know, it was one of those moments again. If you're listening to me, I don't have any other option of crying out to anybody else. Please hear me. I don't know what to do. The next day, that doctor's office called me. We had somebody drop out of our program. Would you like to come in this Friday? I said, you bet I would, man. Let's go. So I went down there and they broke this whole thing down to me. They said, well, you're 570 pounds. You're too heavy for weight loss surgery, because they did that too. They said, because you're a risk on the table.
Oh,
so
right.
So what you'll have to do if you want to be a candidate for that is you'll have to lose 100 pounds first. I'm thinking, how do I lose 100 pounds first? Before 6 months, before the expiration tag goes up on my deal, because now I'm believing what this doctor told me, and everything I turn to is a dead end. You know, I'm feeling pretty hopeless at this point. And so they give me this whole little booklet, and this is how you eat, and the training you how to do this, and journal, and all this stuff. And I go on it trying to lose this 100 pounds to try to have weight loss surgery. And everything they said in this little book, I doubled it. The movement for exercise, I doubled it. I can't move outside the pool, so I'm going to get my ass to the pool and float like a hippo in his own element. And I went into that pool with these little old ladies. They're in their 70s to 90s, and they were doing water aerobics. The first time I went, I sat in the corner and watched them. I said, you know, I think I can hang with these gals. And the next time I joined the class, and I got in there, and I was the only guy in the class, so they're all flirting with me, you know, this, come on. And if I didn't show up, I was more scared of those little old ladies calling me going, where were you today, fatty? I'm serious, man.
Were they talking to you like that?
Oh, yeah, dude.
Oh, nice.
They took me under
That's
their
good.
wings.
Heck
Where were
yeah.
you today, fatty? I thought you were going to do this.
Oh, wow.
And so I was more committed, not to myself at that point. I was more committed to not letting them down.
Yeah.
And I would show up for class. And here's the other thing. The class was only an hour long. Remember I said I doubled everything. Well, after their class, there was an hour of free swim, but there was 15 minutes of everybody out of the pool. We're going to clean up the pool area, and then we start the free swim time. Well, I couldn't get out of the pool because there was a ladder, no stairs, and my body wouldn't fit through that ladder. I'd get up on the third rung, and I can't get my body through the ladder to get out of the pool. And I'd try to climb over it, and I just couldn't get out of the pool. In the shallow end, the only way I can get out is to put my shoulder out, try to lift the leg up, and then roll out like a big whale.
Oh.
And, you know, I'm a 7X T-shirt, 78-inch waist. I got Omar's tent and awning making me shorts. You know what I mean? There's 7X. So, I mean, you're rolling out of the pool and you could slip a ball out or something. You don't want to show, ma'am. Sorry, could you look the other way? I'm going to get out of the pool now. So I waited for all these little ladies to clear the pool so I could privately get out and keep my dignity.
Yeah.
And go and take my shower and, you know, go on my day and start the plumbing company up. But that was 5 days a week. I would show up to their little water aerobics because if I didn't, they would hunt me down. And so I didn't only stay their hour for their class. I stayed an extra hour so I could get it free and get out of the pool. So I stayed moving that extra hour. And what I did at first is I went on, I'm going to give you the keys. Listen up, guys. I'm going to give you the keys. I went on 140 to 160 grams of protein, which that's sketchy because you can only metabolize 25 to 32 at a time. So if you eat too much, you're just wasting it. It's not doing you any good. And the protein is firing up your fat burning factory, which is your liver. And that process is called ketosis, as you know, in the carnivore diet or the Atkins diet. So I got these little strips. You pee on them, keto strips. Every morning, same time. And if they don't have any color on them, you're cheating somehow. You got to adjust your deal. So I would journal everything I put in my mouth. I don't care if it was a lollipop or a piece of gum. I'd journal it. Kiss my wife after she took a sip of sugared coffee. Put it in your journal. So I kept this little notepad in my pocket. I kept it in my journal. Everything I put in my mouth, I don't care what it was, I would put it in the journal. That held me be accountable to myself to go, oh, I forgot I ate that. Oh, yeah, I was walking by and I grabbed a handful of chips. Oh, I grabbed this. I did that. Oh, well, there's the carbs I didn't count. So it helped me really be accountable to understanding the food groups and how they come into you. What are your protein sources? What are your carb sources? What are your sugar sources? So here it is from the top: 140 to 150, 160 grams of protein, under under 60 grams of carbs, and under 20 grams of sugar, and use fruit sources, high fiber like strawberries, things like that for my sugar sources. Now, you can only metabolize that 25 to 32 grams of protein at a time, so I set my alarm clock on my phone every 2 to 3 hours to remind me to eat, because I had to stretch that 140 grams into the whole day.
Right.
And give my factory time to metabolize it instead of just mass wasting it out the backside. And so that broke the binge eater in me. I was never hungry. I had to make myself eat. My alarm went off. I go, dadgummit, I'm not hungry. Well, you have to have protein. A couple hard-boiled eggs, piece of chicken, a protein shake, protein bar. You have to have something for your little 28 to 32 gram boost throughout the day. And that broke the binge eater in me. After that, I just have never been a grazer of just eating, binge, and go to bed. Don't eat breakfast, don't eat lunch, binge it, eat all I want for dinner, and go to bed and sleep with it and store it all. That puts your liver in storage mode. Well, it takes 9 to 14 days to get your liver into ketosis where it's burning fat. So most people that try like the Atkins diet, the carnivore diet, they go for 8, 9, 10 days and they go, I don't see no results. Screw it, man. Give me a sandwich. Give me a piece of cake. I will kill for a piece of bread right now.
Yeah.
You know that feeling?
I know that feeling well.
You know what I mean? You're like, I just give me one piece of bread, a lollipop, something. Your body's crying out. So I ended up losing on that program 345 pounds in 390 days. And I took vitamins A, D, E, K, and multivitamins and mineralized the whole time I was doing it, and had doctors monitoring my blood work going, man, how are you doing this? And then I went in for a hernia surgery after I lost the weight. I went in for a hernia surgery, lifted a water heater, and busted my umbilical hernia.
How much weight did you lose?
I lost 345 pounds.
345
I went from 570 down. I lost 345 pounds in 390 days, so a year and a month. I lost it, got to my goal. And I've kept it off since.
Did you talk to that doctor after that?
Oh yeah, man. They wanted me to come in and speak to their clinic, and
no, the one who told you had 6 months.
I did. I went and visited him and blew him away. He's a missionary now in Mexico.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
It blew him away. We had kind of a relationship before that, and I think that's why it was so rough on me.
Good.
I was a plumber too. So I went in for hernia surgery, and lifted a water heater. Because now I'm getting fit, I'm going to go out and do some plumbing myself instead of sitting in the chair and running the company. I want to get out and about and see the people and, feed the bears,
Yeah.
So I get out and about and I start doing that stuff again. And I lift this water heater out and I busted my I had a hernia in my umbilical, belly button hernia. So I go in and they open me up. They repair it. I come home and I still have to do some more plumbing work. And so I crawl into this house and I snagged a staple on a freaking rock going under a heating duct. You've been in those little tight spots.
Yeah.
And I snagged and it tore and it busted out. My skin was still okay, but it ripped the muscle wall and busted out into my hands, and it was a cantaloupe size. And I'm crawling out from under this house with a cantaloupe of guts in my hand, going pushing them back in so I can get out and get to the hospital.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I wasn't supposed to do anything for like
You
6
dumbass.
weeks. I know.
Holy cow.
So, yeah, I've been through actually 32 surgeries now.
Holy cow.
And some of those I'll explain later. When I lost that weight, I started living again. So I bought a motorcycle. Of course, it's in my soul.
Yeah.
And I'm out living again. And
if you guys can hear the panting, he brought in Tank, his pup, so you can hear the panting of the dog.
He'll settle down in a minute. We'll introduce him to you. He's world famous. He's my balance buddy. And I'll explain that in a minute too. But anyways, I lose this weight. I'm out working again. I'm doing, pulling my life back together.
Oh, you got your guts in your hand.
Oh, that's where we left off.
You climbed out.
Yep.
So then you go to the doctor.
That was the second time. Then I had another hernia surgery. They fixed that one again. That was like 9 days after the first one,
Right.
So it's, I was supposed to heal, and I just went to work, and it didn't allow it to heal. Didn't listen to the doctors. Anyways, long story short, I'm living again. I buy a motorcycle. I'm out in Redding, and I'm riding. I get off the freeway, and I'm in heaven, man. I'm on a bike. I never thought I'd be on a two-wheeler again, because even when I was fat, I didn't give up, and I had a three-wheeler. It was like a couch with a Volkswagen motor, ape hangers. It was gangster.
Oh, man.
So a suicide shift, I'm a big old fat guy on this trike with ape hangers and wheelie bars, And I used to jump that thing. I'm surprised I didn't break the frame. Anyways, I buy a two-wheeler again. I'm getting off the highway in Redding. And I pull up to the stop sign. I'm getting ready to go right. And this other guy gets off the highway behind me and rear ends me from behind.
That seems to be the story of bikers.
From then on, I wore a yellow helmet. It's a, flashing design, But he rear ends me from behind. I went over the backrest, did what's called an annular tear on my disc, L5. And an annular tear is when the fluid leaks out of your disc and it becomes bone on bone. So in all the studies for that, the blood work for that, and checking it out and figuring out what I had, and then I had an angioplasty where they go in and repair it with an epoxy and then elevate it with a protein and bring it back to a little padding between the bones. They found out in all those tests that I had liver cancer. So that being rear-ended on that motorcycle saved my life.
Yeah.
So I went on 16 months of radiation and all the treatment for that, and crawling back and forth to the bathroom. Here I am sick. Skinny, but I'm sick now. And I went through that. So it was one thing after another, the weight loss, then the cancer. And then I start working with kids again, start working on the streets. When I was fat for 13 years of my segment of life where I was fat, I had a group home for kids on drugs and alcohol. I had 146 gangster teenagers live with me over that period.
Was that in your house?
72-acre ranch I bought out in Tennessee. And we had dorm room. It was an old youth camp. I bought it for $145,000. 72 acres, had a 7-acre pond with 12-pound bass in it. And the reason I knew that is because all my friends would catch the big ones and I'd catch all these little ones. I'm going, man, I never hooked a big one. These guys are catching all these big ones. So I didn't realize this because I didn't know much about largemouth bass. But I bought a bunch of ducks to go on the pond. It's a 7-acre pond, so I want some ducks. Throw them out there, and every freaking baby duck, I bought 30 of them. Every single one of them got eaten by fish. That's how big the fish were.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So I really had a great opportunity to buy this place. $145,000, 72 acres. It was an old youth camp. It had 11,000 square foot building with an indoor pool, commercial kitchen, dorm room.
How'd you get the money for all that?
I raised it, started a nonprofit and raised it. Did some other things like that too. We raised a bunch of money and fought we'll talk about that on another podcast. Stay tuned.
You go through all this and you get you lose the weight, you get cancer, And
start working with kids again. And 2008 is the same year that whole crash happened, 2008 and 9. Remember the crash?
Mm-hmm.
And so I lost some real estate, and I lost. I had just got my real estate license in 2006. Lost. I explained that to you the other day too. But I lost some real estate, and we were losing our house and struggling as a plumbing company. I was trying to wear too many hats at one time. And so my mom got sick in Bakersfield, and I said, well, let's just move from Reading down there and help my stepdad with my mom. You know, this is a new season.
And this whole time you have cancer.
Yeah, a new season in life. So we go down there, and I start working with this guy named Fast Eddie to build a street church in Oildale. And I ended up getting some of my tools stolen because we're right in the hood in Oildale. And I'm working with kids again and all this stuff. And somebody, I pissed somebody off, and they burned my house down.
Shh. Are you serious?
Absolutely serious.
So this is the second house burnt down in your lifetime.
Yeah, so I ended up, there's a long story about how I ended up, this pastor ended up selling me another house up in Lake Isabella, and I didn't plan on going to Lake Isabella, but I went to Lake Isabella and bought this little house, and she carried the loan. She's like, give me $3,000 down, and you can take over the house and just make me payments and pay it off. And so I did that, and in doing that, my wife and I were like, let's do something else. It's a new segment of life. Let's do something else. We've been working with kids and, you know, youth pastoring, working with gang kids on the streets, doing the plumbing company, which is my cash engine that's fueling all my passion projects. You know, it's not that I enjoy plumbing. I enjoyed the people that were involved in it, the people I could serve and help them with their problems and solve issues. And also my employees. They were like family, man. I made sure that their kids were fed and their bills were paid too, you know, and it was stressful, but it was a sense of accomplishment too. And coming out of that segment of life where, you know, for over 15 years, I'm over 400 pounds. I was at a place where I couldn't do a lot of stuff. And so I came out like a kid in a candy store. Man, I could do this. Look what I could do. I just jumped. I walked between two cars in a parking lot. And I go, I didn't even touch the mirrors. You know, before I'd squeeze through and, oh man, damn it, I broke that guy's mirror. So let's get out of here. you know,
Wow.
And so many chairs in churches I had folded and broke, and couches.
So now you got this new lease on
So
life.
I have this new lease on life. My wife and I are going, you know, my mom and stepdad.
But you still have cancer.
It's coming to the edge of the end of the treatment now.
Okay, so then
I'm
you're doing
battling.
treatment.
I'm still battling it. I battled it for when we moved into that little new house for about another 8 months.
And this was all chemo?
Yeah, it was radiation.
Okay.
Yeah, they tried chemo at first. It made me too sick, and then they did radiation, and then they did a seed of radiation. They plant a seed in there, and it just kind of sits there and radiates. It makes you sicker than a dog. And then you graduate from that, and you could do blood transfusions, blood transfusions, and then you do the seed, and then these pills, and you take these pills for the rest of it. So anyways, I went through all that. My wife and I are walking through Kernville, holding hands, going, you know, that'd be cool to have an antique store. It's in our body, it's in our bones. We've had eBay businesses, made money. I'm good at buying, selling, trading, you know, and coming up. My mom and dad are antique dealers, so I had it in my soul, you know. And we said, let's try to start an antique shop. Let's do an antique store. So we're walking through Kernville, and I see this going out of business sign on an antique store. So I walked in, the lady's packing up and closing down. I go, how long you been here? She said, 13 years. I said, well, what are you going to do with the store? She said, I'm just closing it down. I said, why are you closing it? Well, the drought, you know, everybody is counting on the river to be high, and the river rafting and the camping and it's a tourist town, Kernville, up in Lake Isabella.
Right.
And because of the drought, the water levels are low and the people stop coming. It's just too much of a struggle to hang on to your overhead. It paid the building costs with no crowd coming to buy anything. So she said, I'm just going to close it down. I said, well, you want to sell it? She goes, I don't own the building. It's a lease, but I own the name. She said, how much you give me for it? So I give you $100. And she said, done.
Really? For $100?
I said, really? Okay. I went and borrowed the $100 from somebody, opened a did a DBA, opened a bank account in the name of that company, got a hold of all her contacts, it was an 8,000 square foot building, and she had rented out little spots and space, kind of like an antique mall co-op. And I saved all those relationships. Every single one of them didn't want to leave.
Oh,
and so I saved them and rewrote a contract with them, upped their rent, even in this tough time. And then I assured them, because of my approach to business, that we were going to put stuff online and not count on the local economy. And I'm going to help provide a service to them and up their rent for that service. And was able to establish that relationship with them. And the first year, we turned $145,000 in an antique store that was all closing down, that I bought for $100.
How about that?
On a borrowed $100.
Yeah, that's great.
And so I went to the guy that owned the building, and I wrote him a check out of that account that there was no money in. And I told him, hold it till Monday, and went and saved all those relationships, and then made the check good and ended up and kicked off. So we did that for a little while. And in doing that, I met this guy that came in and said, I got a ranch for sale. You need to have it. Stand by. Tank, come. I got my dog over here. I'm going to put him on the floor next to me. Come, right here. Lay down right here. You stay. Sorry, folks. That's my little service dog. I was a volunteer police chaplain, and I ended up breaking my back and neck. I've had a lot of surgeries, and I couldn't walk for, about 4 months I was in the hospital. 2 months I couldn't walk or move my feet or legs at all, or toes. My right arm wouldn't move for 6 months. So I've come a long ways, and that was during COVID. And so I got this little service dog to help me balance and walk, because he looks cooler than a walker. And he's a better chick magnet than a walker.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyways, that's more of a story.
So you and your wife get this business, then
I ended up getting this ranch, and this guy walks in and says, I'll sell you the ranch. And I go, how much you want for it? He goes, $900,000. And I went, $1 million, I might as well be $1 million. I'm like, I can't afford it. He goes, I'll make it doable for you. I'm like, doable, man. I just own this little antique store, and there's no way I could do this. And he goes, come on, man, I'll make it doable for you. And we wrote up a land contract on that deal, and with a graduated payment. And I bought a 20-acre facility that was an old historical rodeo where the Turtle Association started the NFR rodeo.
Okay. On
this property in the 30s. And I think it was 1938 or something. The barn was built in the turn of the century. It was 1800s or 1920s. They finished, added on to it. But it was also, it was a brothel at one time. It was all tongue and groove wood, beautiful building. But so I started developing this place as a community outreach. And we put a lawnmower racing track up in the back corner and bulldozed and fixed it all up. And sorry about that. And started doing community events where we would invite the community onto the ranch. Once a month, we had like 2,000 people show up for lawnmower races and concerts and all kinds of stuff. And I had put 8,800 feet of 2-inch and 1.5-inch pipe, because our well wasn't strong enough it was a desert property, wasn't strong enough to irrigate. It was a 20-gallon-a-minute well, and it would never run an irrigation system on a 5-acre field that I wanted to create a concert and stage and lawn. And so we got all these alpacas, 27 alpacas, and we had 11 horses, and I had a little John Deere tractor with a front loader, and I was making my own soil, and we had about a 3-foot by 500-foot long vermiculture bed where I would put all this stuff in there and let the worms do their thing, and then take it out and make topsoil in the desert.
Wow.
And I put 8,800 feet of irrigation in with one 700-gallon and one 500-gallon pressure tank, and a 1,000-gallon storage tank, and built a well system that would handle that trickle fill all night on a float, and then handle the irrigation the next day for that.
So let's fast forward a little bit. I want to talk
put in a rodeo arena there too. And
really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot.
I put about $250,000 in cash into this ranch.
You've done a lot. and I don't want to skip over a whole lot of it, but I want to get to some stuff that
well,
that's really important to who you are and your story.
Well, I went through a divorce, and let me tell you why. Well, there's probably a lot of reasons from her side, my side, and I never saw myself as going through a divorce. I always, in my heart, was, hey, this is till death do we part, you know. And that was my commitment, that was my level, and that's how I looked at it. But when I lost all the weight and started living again, doing other things, I got distracted like a fish coming up for a lure at everything I couldn't do before. So somehow I had lost our connection of intimacy and attention between us, and she sought it somewhere else and went and ended up getting pregnant and coming home with someone else's baby.
Oh, no.
And I ended up I delivered the baby on my bathroom floor because she lied about it until 7 months pregnant. I'm not pregnant. I'm just getting fat. I'm not pregnant. And I finally just told her, I said, you're pregnant? You got the glow? And I told you I forgive you and I love you. And we'll just do it. And I dealt with it that way. And it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do, or stand up and you know, because every day you're looking at that baby and going, he'll never be someone else's. He'll always be my boy. You know, I love the little guy.
So you were gonna do this.
I did it.
You were still.
I did it for 7 more years.
Wow.
And then a voice whispered in my head. I was building a monster plumbing company in Northern California in another phase after the ranch situation. But so we had 10 trucks going, 17 employees, and we were had some big contracts with big box stores. And then we were doing covering 32 cities in Northern California and turning up between $180,000 to $250,000 a month in cash flow. So I got distracted. You know how owning your own business, it's not like everybody thinks. You're just rolling in the cash. You know, you got all this overhead, all this headaches, all these, you know, I had some real estate investments too, and I was trying to keep ahead of everything, and bad tenants and problems like that. And then a plumbing truck that got stolen, and you know, jobs that guys didn't show up to, I'd have to go fill in for. So I was working 80, 90 hours a week. You know, I'd come home and then I'd have to do payroll and all that stuff. And so I was trying to cut corners, paying everybody so I could keep more of the bottom line, wear many hats myself. And I had a 5-year picture of, hey, we're going to do this for 5 years, then we're going to go out and enjoy. And in that period, I had that little whisper, you know, hey, your wife's doing this again. So I came home and I go, hey, are you cheating on me again? That's the first time I mentioned it since the baby was born, 7 years after the baby was born. And she said, no. I said, can I see your phone? She said, no. So I grabbed her phone from her. That was the only time I ever, anything kind of physical, but I grabbed her hand and grabbed her phone from her. 17 different guys she sent in booby pictures to, and I'm going, you seem pretty fun. Why wouldn't you do that with me? I'm out working 80, 90 hours a week. I said, I'm going to give you a year to figure out what you want to do. And I just left and went to work.
You didn't give up on it then either.
I didn't.
You're a better man than I am.
It was hard. I did it mostly because of grace, mercy.
Yeah, I don't know that I could do that.
I don't know if I could ever do it again.
Yeah.
And it really still yanks me a little bit.
Oh yeah, I bet.
But anyways, I did. And
so you gave her a year.
I gave her a year. I'm volunteering as a police chaplain. I went through the chaplain academy and all that stuff, and I got licensed when I was in Redding as a CISM, critical incident stress manager. So I'm going to their, you know, suicides, death notifications for the coroner's office. I'm doing 5 or 6 of those a day, knocking on doors. I'm sorry to inform you that, you know, there's a process to how you introduce yourself, how you stand at the door, when you tell them, after you clear the house, get everybody in the same room, and then how you tell them. And there's a process to that whole thing. And so I was doing that too. And a call came over, a scanner. I wasn't on rotation for call, so I deployed myself to this call because it was right around the corner from my house. And this old guy, who's 76 years old, 270 pounds, male, was stuck in a hole. And so I grabbed a towel. I did an assessment on him. I went through EMT school, and I go, man, this guy's going to die if we don't get him out of this hole. And it's me and this little old lady and her dog. So wrapped a towel around his chest. I put my knees in his back, and I arched back, and I pulled, and I turned, and I broke my lower back. That old annular tear where I got rear-ended on the motorcycle, bone on bone, grinded a piece of bone into my spinal column. I lost my legs for, like I told you, I was in the hospital 4 months, couldn't move at all for 2 months. They put me on a stroke ward and said, basically, we're trying to find permanent housing for you, you know. So thinking I'm going to be put in. So I went through all that. While I was in the hospital, my wife served me divorce papers and left.
Wow.
With a letter that I still have that I can't do paralyzed. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Yeah. So I read that letter the other day again, and it broke my heart again. And I probably shouldn't read it anymore, but it is what it is, and it's part of part of life, and it's part of the story. We all go through heartaches and different times of trouble. And
yeah, it makes you who you are. So I want to get into your life assisting.
So this is why.
Okay.
My daughter was missing almost 2 years.
How did she go missing?
We don't know. She just out of the radar. Dropped her kids off for ex-husbands.
So how old was she when she was missing? When she went missing?
30.
She was 30 years old.
29 or 30.
So she was already married. Had kids.
She married and going through a divorce, and then she drops the kids off. Her
she was going through a divorce at the time.
Going through a divorce. Yep.
So you
dropped
had a
her
lot
kids
going
off
on.
at the husband. Yeah, this is all at the same time. We dropped the kids off the ex-husband who just gets out of the Air Force. They were traveling all over the place.
Did you ever think that it was him?
There was a lot of things that crossed my mind.
I asked that because that's where I would go.
It was the first thing that crossed my mind. Yeah. Because first of all, she's not the type that would drop her kids off anywhere, even at his house.
Yeah.
And why would she do that? And if she did, you know, but when she dropped him off, she was in communication with me for a couple weeks, so I knew she was okay. But she was, you know, I didn't know where she was going, what she was doing, anything like that. Anyways, there's a lot to this story because I went on a mad dash of, you know, all of us did. Her sisters, we had ads out on Facebook. The you know, she's on the missing report. They're looking for her. The cops are looking for her. Everybody's looking for her. Now it's escalated into this is a missing person. Mm-hmm. And you know, loose ends, we couldn't find her anywhere. So I found out, this is before the tail end I'm going to tell you in a minute, but I found out that she's with this young man, in South Carolina. So I loaded up that little plumbing truck that's outside, and I hooked up to my RV, and I went all the way to South Carolina, and I found her, and I found him, and talked to him, and reconnected, and I'm like, there's something not right here. Something not right. And I could tell that she was on drugs, and none of my kids, they were all raised in ministry. None of my kids have battled and really gone in that whole, you know, the way I went when I was a kid. All my kids were great kids. They led worship at churches and traveled and sang at other churches and were involved in the ministry. And I had all these troubled teens living with us, so they didn't want no part of that kind of crap in their lives. So, yeah, I didn't try to hide them and shelter them from them. I showed them right full blast. These are kids that are struggling, and this is why they're struggling. So these kids didn't get in trouble. They never really did that. So anyways, I go there and I go, she's on something. She's on something. And I talked to her, and he gave me some meth for my diet to help me. She was struggling with her weight. So I go, huh, you know, taking it all in. So I kind of single him out and pull him aside. I said, hey, if you ever give my daughter any drugs again, I saw needle marks on her arm. It wasn't just snorting it or taking a diet pill. I said, if you ever give her drugs again, you're going to meet me or Jesus or both. And I meant it. I meant it. And I'm a Christian, man, but I meant it. That was my baby. So hugs, love you. Had a great visit. Bye. We come back to California, pulling the RV, and 2 weeks later, he's dead.
Overdose.
No.
No.
he was managing 5 different bars, the bouncing team, which is a contract to these bars. It's a bouncing organization, a firm. And he's managing all these little bars with his security team. And he works late till 2 o'clock in the morning when bars close. And on the way home, I don't know if he was up for 2 or 3 days or what he was, but he fell asleep driving and swerved into a family van of another family and killed all them too.
Oh, no.
And it killed him. So my daughter calls me, "What did you do, Dad?" I said, "I didn't do nothing. He killed a whole family member. He fell asleep on, you know." She's like, "Well, no, you told him that Jesus was going to get him if he gave me drugs." I said, "I didn't have nothing to do with that."
Did he give you drugs?
Yeah. So that's where she went missing off the radar.
Oh, that's when she went missing.
She was missing, and then we found her.
And then you found her.
And then she went missing off the radar, and that's when the cops are calling us saying we can't find her, and we're calling the cops going, "You find her. She was here last time. She was in that area." And I'm thinking, South Carolina, there's swamps everywhere. She's dealing with people that are dealing drugs like this.
Right.
Maybe she had a debt. Maybe she's alligator food. What happened to my daughter? So I started building a biker network. I had some biker friends across the world, across the United States especially, but across the world, that are in the Christian biker world, because I'm still a biker. I love to bike. And so I'm hooking up with all these other ministries and Christian MCs and Christian MMs and motorcycle ministries and things like that. So I built a network of over 25,000 bikers on my
Holy
network
cow.
across the United States. So we could find this person or go to this person or help that person and do that. And then I hooked up with an organization called Citizens and Bikers for a Brighter Future, which a friend of mine started up in Portland, Oregon, because his daughter was missing. So they elected me as the California president for Citizens and Bikers for an organization, or for a Brighter Future. And what we did was, or what we do, is we help women that are in abusive situations, kids that are in abusive situations. We help them get out, get to a safe house, and we deal with trafficking. So we stumble across those. So
How do you stumble across that?
I'm going to tell you right now. So we made some business cards.
Okay.
And we go to known prostitution hotels. And say, if you ever need a girl, or, they know what they're doing. They're renting the hourly rates. Come on.
Yeah.
So if you ever have a girl that needs to get out or wants to get out, have them call us. And we leave it at the desk with them. We make friends and talk to them. That's what we do. And it's who we are. And another ministry called Magdalene Hope in Bakersfield, California, had a different approach. They would make little brown bag lunches and put toothpaste and deodorant and shower gel and all these little trinkets in there, and a gift certificate to go buy them something at Walmart, and they would walk and a $20 bill. And they would walk the streets of Union Street, Union Avenue in Bakersfield is a known prostitution street. So they would walk that street and give out these bags to these girls. Here, let's give you this. And can I have about 15 minutes of your time? Well, no, my pimp's over there, and he's gonna be mad at me if I sit down and talk with you, and I'm not even getting in cars and making money. He said, "Well, what would it cost me to sit with you for 15 minutes? $20. So that's when he started putting the $20 in the bag too. He goes, "Well, there's $20 in there. If you have to give it to your pimp, whatever you have to do that. Let me have 15 minutes of your time." And
So you'd get in the car, pretended something was going on, or
No, he'd sit with him on the street because he wants to avoid the appearance of evil. He's a pastor, you don't want to be like, got caught in a car with a prostitute.
Right, yeah.
So he'd sit on the street with him, and he'd usually have his wife or a girl with him as part of the team for integrity reasons.
Yeah,
sure. And a witness.
Right, yeah.
She's got a story on me. But he taught me something about when he did that. He would get a lot of threats against him because he started a safe house. And he was pulling girls off the streets, and their pimps were getting mad. We lost that one. She was a moneymaker. Where'd she go? To the safe house. Nobody knows where the safe house is. So they're trying to find this guy, track him, do all this kind of stuff. So we started some safe houses just off that model going, man, we can do that too. And we started using other resources that were there, like Set Free Ranch or this or that, whatever programs that are there already available and established that we can use and not have to reinvent the wheel all over again and do, the stuff we don't do best. The stuff we do best is going to get them and getting them out of that situation. Well, we rescued, in the last 3 years, almost 1,800 girls and kids.
Holy cow.
Almost 1,800 in 3 years. And we're in 7 states now. It's Citizens and Bikers for a Brighter Future. Look it up. There's no gore. If you go to the webpage or you go to our Facebook, you're not going to read stories about, all you're going to see is, hey, Amber Alert, this missing person, let's look. You're going to see surface stuff. You're not going to see anything else. We're not the cops. We don't call the cops. If we do need first responders, we'll dial, not 911, we'll dial the local fire department. Say, I think there's somebody having a heart problem out here, and they'll get there fast. And if they need the cops, they'll call the cops. Certain hotels, I'll give you this one story real quick. This girl was driving around in a minivan, and she's a heroin addict. And she was told by her dealer, bring me some kids and I'll give you some dope. So she was going to city parks, and she would wait and grab a kid and take him to the heroin dealer. This is in Colorado Springs.
That's where I was stationed.
She would take him. It's a big hub for trafficking right there. That's where we found the shipping container. I'll explain in a minute too.
So
hang on real quick. She would bring, go ahead.
I got a question about that.
Yeah.
So she would go
to a city park, like kidnap a kid.
Like how old? Did it matter?
No, he wanted little kids. He's dealing with little kids.
Is that me or you?
No, that's me. He's dealing with little kids, 7 to 11.
And he's like specifically girls,
boys. This is what he's doing. He's a heroin addict and also a pervert and a child molester. And so he wanted his appetite for that crap. He had this girl, because her appetite for drugs, bring him kids, and he would give her drugs. Well, he was a 2-striker, violent offender, had machine guns in his hotel room. The hotel calls us and says, hey, something's going on with this room, because we built a relationship with this hotel, giving them cards. The kids are coming in and out of this room. They're coming in, but they're going out too. And there's another set of kids coming in and going out. And what this guy was doing is he would do whatever he wanted with them, sexually or whatever, and then he would sell them for 50 grand. 50 grand.
What?
Your kids.
To who?
My kids, your kids. Whoever the buyer is. The American,
nobody ever
the American's appetite for children is off the chain, man. We're the highest. America is the highest market for trafficking kids, and then they use them up. And I'm stepping out here to say this, but they do child sacrifice. They sell their organs. They cut them up. They do all kinds of crazy stuff.
What do you mean you're stepping out to say that?
Because a lot of people think it's a lot of hearsay or bullshit.
You don't have any direct evidence.
I don't have any direct evidence of the human sacrifice, but the kids are missing all over the place.
Yeah.
So, and they're not able to find them.
Yeah.
We did find, let me finish this one story, and then I'm going to tell you about a shipping container and remind me about that.
Okay.
Because that's one that's heavy on my heart. But anyways, so the hotel calls us. We put a car on it. We're not cops. Just got a guy out in a car with a girl. Binoculars, watch. Sure enough, they're bringing kids into this room. We go talk to the hotel again. Said, okay, this is what we want to do. We want to go in and check this room. Will you deputize us as hotel security? Yes. Okay, we got a 9-man team with a little girl that's 19 years old, little badass black belt girl. The team is around the corner, this side, back, both sides around the corner, out of sight of the peephole. This little 19-year-old girl knocks on the door, and they open the door. She goes, oh, I'm sorry, wrong room. And they tried to grab her. So she went into a struggle. They keep a panic button on them that looks like, well, I probably shouldn't show what it looks like, but it looks like this. They hit it twice.
And that happens?
It gives me the location where they're at. Let me shut it off. Location where they're at, who it is. There's 40 panic buttons out there.
Okay.
So, and where it's moving to. And so they stash them on them, Anyways, so this girl knocks. They tried to grab her. Our extraction team comes around the door. We're hotel security. What's going on here? We subdue the guy. I wasn't on scene on this one, but we subdue the guy. He's got an AR-15 in there, drugs. The girl is there because she's just delivering kids at the time when we went in, because we wanted to get them all at the same time. And when the cops actually did come to this, of course, the hotel called the cops. And we're not cop callers. We can't because our volunteers won't volunteer if we're cop callers. And we're just not cop callers. It's not. So there's other ways to handle it. And, if you have issues, okay, you get out of here before, they get here. Because we use guys that are pretty rough that want to go in and help, Anyways, the cops came and they got this guy on the third strike. He's doing life in prison right now.
Good.
And yeah, and he's not.
So there was kids in the room?
And he's late. Yeah, kids in the room. The kids were covered, 2 kids. And the girl told everything.
Oh.
I did this and he told me to do this and he told me to do that. And I went and got these kids over here and this is where he gets rid of them and all, and they're getting rid of them too.
So she's singing like a
associated with the cartel situation. I don't know which branch or who now. I'm not even going to go there, but
yeah.
But that's where a lot of them are going. In the same city is where we found the shipping container. Same issue. Was a hotel that gave us a heads up on it.
So walk through that shipping container story.
We get the call. It's a hotel again, and they know of a yard where they're taking girls, and they heard it from one of the other girls, because all the prostitutes talk between each. Hey, watch out for this on the streets. It's street talk. They try to protect each other, and they know that people are grabbing them and they're raping them and they're trying to get freebies and all this other stuff they're trying to get from these poor girls that are being trafficked on our American streets. Not just here, but after they used up here, if there's anything left in them, they sell them to other countries. So this particular shipping container was supposed to be slated to go to China, and they're trying to get a full load, which is 20 girls. And they had it full.
In a 40-foot shipping container.
20-foot shipping container.
20 foot.
22 or whatever those shorter 20s, yeah. So they're shorter ones with, 20 foot, 20 girls. And these are all girls between 13 and 21 or 25.
Oh no.
Yeah. So so we got the word on it. Of course they're watching the yard. They got people on the gate. So without giving all the details out, we were able to subdue the guy watching the yard and go cut the lock on it and get the kids out. And
so you walked up.
Our team walked in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you there?
No.
Oh, you
were there. That was in
there.
Colorado. I dispatched that call.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so they walk in and there's 20 girls sitting in a shipping container.
Yeah, in their own feces and everything, man.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. So they probably, throw them a sandwich, wait till the container's full. We've only got 7. We need, 5 more days to get some more before it goes. And somebody's contracted them to do that. And they're getting 50 grand a pop.
How long ago was that?
2 years? No, a year and a half.
Year and a half ago in Colorado Springs.
Yeah, it's going on right now under our skin every day, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that new movie that just came out, but it's man, I cried too.
Yeah, I haven't watched. I know what you're talking about. I can't.
A lot of times I've tried to have this conversation with pastors and things like that. I go to a church up in Corona Crossroads, and they just started a SWAT team to kick doors and help with this.
Like a church?
Yes, sir.
A church started a SWAT
team? A church SWAT team, not a law enforcement. And it's Crossroads.
How does that work?
Well, I wrote the policies and procedures manual for our rescue team, which helps you to dance around the law, because we're not vigilantes and we're not cops. So we don't have the power of the badge. And there's different levels. Level 1 is emergency. Stop what we're doing right now. Stop the show. We're going to get somebody. We have to go help. Level 2 is, hey, we got to get this person today, but I got time to call and get some help. Level 3 is, we got to get them sometime this week. So levels drop as you go all the way to level 7, which level 7 could be, hey, this girl just needs somebody to come by and knock on the door. And so we'll ride by with 3 or 4 bikers. You go, hey, sis, how you been? Who the hell's this guy? And just the ministry of presence goes, shit, she's got friends.
Right.
Watch my P's and Q's. This is an abusive situation, a domestic violence situation, where law enforcement, that's one of the biggest things they get hurt on is domestic violence situations. That's one of the most dangerous calls. Yeah. They hate those calls. So we've gotten referrals from law enforcement, referrals from family and children's services, referrals from hotels, going, hey, these guys will come help you. They'll get you to a safe house. And so different levels have different execution.
Right.
So level 1, you can kick a door. I'm going to go get this person out of here, and I'm going to go in aggressively. So usually our point guy has a camera. You have your phone right there or a body camera. Then our 2 next guys have CCWs. We're legal. And then we got muscle. And then we got a couple girls to help her pack her stuff. So we'll bring a team. And so level 1s, 2s, and 3s are the most intense and dangerous levels. And nobody's ever got hurt in almost 1,800 rescues in 3 years. None of our team members have ever gotten hurt. One of our guys had to shoot 2 guys once because they pulled on him when we came in. So if we have a text message from, let's call this one just a domestic violence. Let's call this one a domestic violence situation. We get a text message. My sister, she's going through this. Can your sister get a hold of me? Yes, I'll have her get a hold of you. Okay, send me this message, then delete it off your phone because I don't want your abuser to find out that you're communicating. Send me this message and delete it. And what I want is your name. I want a picture of you. I want a picture of a piece of mail that gives you right to be in that house. And I want an invite to come help you. Those 4 things. If I have those in proof, then I can go kick that door and get her out. I don't need a warrant. I'm not a cop. Right. I'm a friend helping somebody get out of a situation, and I have an invite. Come get me. Help, please. Please help. So those are, most of our calls aren't trafficking. We stumble across those, and we started stumbling across those. That's why we started giving out cards to known prostitution motels and things like that, and stopping and talking to girls and going, hey, if you want help and get out of this, we'll get you in a treatment center, because most of them are addicted. Some of them have gone back. I had one last year that I spent almost 2 months helping this girl, getting her to a place, then she'd go back, getting to a place, go back. And I finally got her out. She went to a safe house. They wouldn't let her smoke her vape, so she left. And that night she was killed. And she died right here in In-N-Out bathroom in Lake Elsinore.
How did she?
Somebody hot-shotted her with fentanyl. And she didn't do fentanyl, man. Her thing was meth. Could have been cut with it. It could have been. There's an ongoing investigation. But the detective that was over that called me and said, they're putting fentanyl in weed. They're putting it in everything. Now they're making little candy pills out of it. I lost another guy, not a month and a half, 2 months ago off. He was clean for 2 years. He took a half of a little pill, and it killed him. Half a little pill.
I heard the cartels are starting to.
They're not doing it anymore.
Go after guys who are cutting it.
What's going on?
They're killing off their clientele.
Yeah, it's not only that, but I don't know about this county, but Riverside County, if you die of a fentanyl overdose, it's automatically a murder investigation.
Oh, good.
In Riverside County.
That's awesome.
I think it's a great move, man, because it's actually stifling people, and some of the people that were known dealers on the streets are like, I ain't dealing that no more. So that move has stopped a few people from moving around. I don't know how good it'll be. We've got so much.
Why are the cartels? Do you think? Why are they?
I think to bring heat off themselves. They got this border thing going on, all kinds of other things. Their big money right now is smuggling people.
Yeah.
They're charging $10,000 a piece to cross the border.
Yeah, I don't know why people are paying that. They just walk right across.
Well, because they got them convinced that they have to.
Right.
That they're not going to let them across unless they give them the
Well, that makes sense.
So what happens is they'll hold a family member or two behind, ransom until these guys paid their $30,000 for the 3 they let through. And now these guys got to go find an under-the-table job, and it's just a family trying to find freedom. Comes out and finds they got to work in a meat plant somewhere, or pushing broom off the clock, or
16, 20 hours a day
to try to get their family member free and pay their debt before they can even start and try to be a productive member of our country, or the process of
however that works out.
Getting in. Anyways, I don't know all the details. I do know this, that we've talked to a number of people that have been trafficked that owe that money, and then I've seen enough on Bongino and Tucker Carlson and other,
All those.
people that are telling the truth.
Right.
I tell you what, that nailed my heart a little bit, guys. I'm sorry.
Why are you sorry?
Well, I'm sorry because I'm choked up.
Be choked up. That's what.
It's 10 years
real.
ago, I met that girl and I was friends with her family, and her mom and dad. I worked with them for that whole 2 months, saying I got it. They're in Wyoming. He's an ex-Navy SEAL, retired DEA. She's retired San Diego cop, and they're going, please, Brian, go get him, go get her, go help her. And I'm comforting them on the other end. I still talk to them. They're one of my great friends. And they told me, they said, you did everything you could. You did everything you could.
Never feels like enough, though.
It never feels like enough, bro. I feel like, because the day she left that safe house, she calls me and it's like, come get me, help me. I'm like, I can't. You can't come to my house. I live in my little RV that I have. I just lost my house, and so my hands were tied. I couldn't do nothing. And I was busy, in fact, that day. I couldn't even come get me right now, kind of thing. And I couldn't break away to do that. So there's a little piece of me that blames myself, even though I know I can't. I talk to people. They're like, you can't do that. Don't blame yourself. You did what you could. Even her own parents have told me that. But there's just that little piece of me that says,
yeah, you have that guilt. And
a pastor once said to me, he goes, Brian, you got a Messiah complex. I go, what are you trying to say? He said, you can't save the whole world. And I said, but with that attitude, I can't help anybody. Nice talking to you, Pastor. And I walked off.
Yeah.
And not to be bitter at the pastor, but, back to my relationship with God for a minute. The Great Commission is to go out into the highways and hedges and compel them to come in, and the ones that believe will be saved. But instead of the Great Commission, the corporate church has made it the Great Omission, and they say, y'all come to our spaghetti meetings and maybe some will give their life to Jesus. And I'm not knocking anybody for the way they're reaching out. I just think that there's more we can do corporately just for the humanity, not even in a commitment with a relationship with God or driven by God or however you feel, driven by your convictions or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's
fellow human.
Yeah, we're missing a lot of that in this world.
That's what breaks my heart.
Yeah, we just need to step up. Men in general just need to step up.
Yeah, it's and be a man.
Well, that's a whole nother story.
Another podcast. Isn't it?
Yeah. Oh.
Anyways, that one chokes me up every time.
And you have a book that's coming out.
I do. I'm hoping in January it'll be released. I'm going through the editing phase right now. I started as a journal, and it was my weight loss journal, and that's the first one. It's called Half the Man I Used to Be, and I'll send you a clip where you can put it on there, or put it a link in the bio or whatever. But it's called Half the Man I Used to Be, and it's about my the technical journey of losing weight and also my emotional journey. Through that whole process, I'm dealing with my ego and just different things like that I had.
That's going to help somebody so much. That's tremendous.
I hope so.
How did you write that book?
It was painful, man. And I just started journaling for sorting my own thoughts out and different things. Because I'm at the place where I'm losing all this weight. I'm reinventing myself. I'm not this fat guy that can only do phone curls. I'm able to do plumbing now, ride a motorcycle now. So I'm reinventing myself. I'm re-fantasizing and dreaming and having vision for my life again. Whereas I was on the tail end of it before and thought that at any moment I would just die anyways. So I didn't dream about the future other than hope for my kids, So I started journaling some of those thoughts and processes. And I go, man, I got to give this to somebody else. Somebody else needs this. And so I started wrapping it up, and I'm not a natural writer. I wasn't great in English, and math was my thing in school, but and business too. But I've never been a real great communicator, articulate individual that way.
And what what did you use to write this book? Were you on your phone?
Well, when I started journaling this particular book, I didn't journal the whole way up. I used some of my old journals and it was all on the phone or a tablet, which I had saved to the cloud and brought into the phone. So I could always have my notes with me wherever I was. And I get a thought and I go, I need to type this into my notes. This is a great chapter idea, or just so I'd be Johnny on the spot with it. So actually, I have written over 250,000 words with these two thumbs on my phone.
Oh my gosh.
And now that other programs like when that was before the iPhone and stuff like that. So now you can verbally type and then go back and edit it. But I don't communicate that way as well as I've learned to channel it through just typing it with my text.
Holy cow.
And it's amazing, actually. So I started writing as a journal for myself so I could go back and remember my thoughts, remember my things. And then I started seeing little keys of things that may help somebody else. And I'm going, man, I got to give this out. And I started bouncing ideas. And mostly paragraphs or thoughts. And then sometimes chapters off of other people that I really looked up to, other pastors and friends, and even a couple people that have written books. And they're like, this is brilliant, man. You have to do this. And I felt like most of my life I need to communicate some of this stuff we've been talking about on the podcast, as I was growing up, the troubles going through, running the ranch while my dad fought the government all the way to the United States Supreme Court. That was a heavy burden to have on a kid, and so all these things I processed through that journal through that book. And that's why I've written so much that I have 3 books planned. So one is called My Favorite Color is Clear.
Okay.
And that's about positive and negative influence that I've let people bring into my life and what I've done with it. Whether it's been somebody that's helped me up or pulled me down, and how I've allowed it or not allowed it, and what the situation is. So it's kind of a journal of those things. And then the other one's called Teflon Soul, and it's about some of the trials and troubles I've been through personally, personal struggles, the weight loss, the drug addiction, different things, 32 surgeries, being paralyzed, fighting cancer, all those things that these little surface things that I went through that I tried to build a platform to never go back to emotionally. And sometimes I revisit, like on the way here, I had this emotional flush, man, because I'm thinking, what am I going to talk about on your podcast? What's okay to talk about? What does he want me to talk about? And what do you people need to hear? And I had this big emotional thing come over me, and I'm struggling. This morning I was going to ride my motorcycle and go for a ride. I get out, my key fob's dead. And I'm going one thing after another this morning, and just to get here was like going through a brick wall. So I knew I had to get here.
Right.
It was one of those things like, if it's that rough, it's not a sign showing you don't go. It's just, it's everything against you. So you can't get this out. And it needed to get here and get it out. So there's been a lot of those things that have come out in my journal writing too, where I'm like, do I need to include this? No, it's too personal, man. I don't want to include this. I don't want to include this. I'm not gonna. And then I'll go back over it. There were some dark times during that. I struggled through some dark times, man. When you go to a lot of police scenes and emergency scenes and rescues and see all this craziness and just stuff growing up and just.
So how did you come out on top of that?
Well, it builds
before
up.
We wrap it up.
It builds up in you, and you try to establish tools to get out of it. But here I am, just getting out of the hospital. I could barely. I'm using a walker to walk because I'm 4 months out of the hospital now, and I'm using a walker to walk. But on hard days, I'm crawling back and forth. I lost my house. I'm going through a divorce, all this stuff, and so I'm looking over at my gun, going, "That's the easy way, man. I'm doing it." And I grab this thing, and I look at it. And you have soldier buddies, battle buddies that have gone through this thought process and maybe even wrestled and struggled through it yourself. And maybe you guys have had some of these thoughts. And it was the most real moment of my life, man. I go, I'm at that thought where we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast when I'm dealing with somebody that's addicted or trying to break free from that. There's too many minutes in the day, too many hours in the day, too many days in the week to take it one day at a time. I had that moment to decide. The gun's in my hand. I fired one out the window and smelled the barrel.
In that moment?
In that moment.
Holy shit. Where were you?
In an RV in the woods.
Well, at least you're in the woods.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done it that way. Yeah, no, I wouldn't have left a mess for anybody. Yeah. So I smell it, and I'm going, the next one's mine. That's how close to that moment I was. And I felt the presence of God come into that room, man, and shake me up again. And I'm thankful for that. And that's the only way I know how to explain it. That the presence of God interrupted that moment. And the kids didn't lose their dad. And I'm still here with you guys.
And now, countless other people have been saved because of you.
Well,
in your actions.
I feel like it's my life purpose. And all my life has been prepared for this. And so I got to get those books out. I got to get them out. And it's been real hard to go into some of the places in my mind, in my heart, in my memory, to revisit those painful places and then try to turn them into something that communicates some hope.
Who do you talk to in those times?
Mostly me and the Lord. It's hard to trust anybody.
Got to find someone.
I know.
Got to find someone.
You're right. Maybe I found him. It's hard to trust anybody. I had one of those moments on the way here, not a gun moment, but just an emotional flush moment of, going back to some of these memories that we're talking about now and some of these experiences. Those are things you want to leave behind you.
Yeah, as men, we gotta foster a relationship with somebody, with multiple people, whoever it is, that we can be open and vulnerable with.
Trust.
And it's trust. It's an emotional. It's somebody who I can lay my heart and soul out to, and they're not going to judge me. They're going to try to help me through it. And and every man out there needs somebody who can do that. I've been fortunate in my life. I have multiple friends that I can do that with. And
even the churches today are some are so big that it's really hard to plug in and go call your pastor.
Yeah, when your pastor's on a freaking screen and it doesn't do anything. I mean, unless the community itself there is fostering that, then there's no way that that's going to be relatable. Or scalable to the masses. And we have a whole lot of.
It's definitely something hard to carry by yourself.
But we need to.
It's something I struggle with occasionally, not the suicidal part of it, but just why am I doing this? I'm overwhelmed.
Well, yeah.
Here I am. I have 2 more surgeries coming up. I have to move my RV tomorrow or today. I'm supposed to move it today. I don't know where I'm going to put it. I had to take disability income. This is being personal with you, so I could pay my medical bills. We're almost $2 million. Come here, sir.
He's a good boy. He's good.
He is good. You guys want to meet Tank? Come here, Tank. Come up here.
Frank the Tank.
Tank, come on up.
Frank the Tank.
This is Tank.
There he is.
This is Tank. Say hi to Tank.
He's gonna put me down.
All right.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up. So, okay, Tank. Oh, thanks for that.
I'm sorry.
Thanks for that, buddy. Thank you.
You're welcome
for coming out and being open and talking about this. Thanks for the ride yesterday. It was a blast. I had a great time. Yeah, we'll do it again for sure. Frank, thanks for loaning him out.
Hey, and thank you guys for tuning in and also not judging me, man. Vulnerability is tough for men these days, to let it out and trust. And here we're putting it all over the airways, our vulnerability for you guys, in hope that somebody can get a little nugget of some hope. I used to say that I'm a hopeless dope dealer, but now I'm a dopeless hope dealer. So if you got anything out of this, please hang on to the hope that you can get through whatever you're going through by just knowing this too shall pass, and taking every thought captive, remembering one day at a time is too long.